Marcus Rivera sits alone in Murphy's Café, shoulders hunched over black coffee that's gone cold. His marine jacket is worn but clean, beard trimmed despite having no permanent address. Two officers walk in like they own the place, badges gleaming, eyes already fixed on him like he's guilty of something. They don't know who they're messing with. They see a homeless veteran and think they can push him around, humiliate him in front of everyone. But when they cross the line, when they violate his dignity one time too many, Marcus pulls out an old flip phone and makes one call. Just one. And in that moment, everything changes. Because what these officers don't realize is that this quiet man sitting in the corner holds secrets that could end their careers. And when you find out who he really called, you're going to be absolutely shocked. The morning mist clung to the streets of Riverside, California like a secret nobody wanted to tell. Murphy's Café sat wedged between a laundromat and a bail bonds office, the kind of place where the coffee was strong and the questions were few. Marcus Rivera had claimed the corner booth by 7 a.m. sharp, same as every Wednesday. At 54, he moved with the measured precision of someone who'd learned to make every motion count. His marine jacket told one story, patches faded, nied, sleeves frayed at the cuffs, but his eyes told another. They were alert, scanning, never quite at rest. "Morning, Marcus," called Beth from behind the counter. She was 38, divorced, raising twin boys on tips and determination. "Got your usual ready." She didn't wait for his order. 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, coffee black as midnight. He paid an exact change, always did, counting out crumpled bills like they were sacred. Tony, the owner, wiped down tables with practiced efficiency. "Man, could run this place better than me," he muttered to Beth, glancing at Marcus. "Never seen someone treat a meal with such respect." It was true. Marcus ate slowly, deliberately, making each bite last. Not because he was savoring it, but because he wasn't sure when the next one would come. To most customers, Marcus looked like someone barely holding on. No car in the parking lot, no apartment keys jangling in his pocket, just one duffel bag tucked under the table and shoes that had walked more miles than they were designed for. But to the people who mattered, Beth, Tony, old Mrs. Chen, who came in for tea every morning, he was family. Quiet family, sure, but the kind you could count on. The bell above the door chimed, and 2 patrol officers stepped inside. Officer Bradley Kane moved like he'd been lifting weights since high school and never stopped. His partner, Officer Jim Russo, was shorter, stockier, with eyes that seemed to catalog everyone's guilt before they spoke. They weren't here for coffee. Kane's eyes swept the cafe and landed on Marcus like a heat-seeking missile. He didn't acknowledge Beth's polite greeting or Tony's nod. His focus was singular, predatory. Russo pulled out a small notebook, already writing before he'd asked a single question. "Sir," Kane said, approaching Marcus's table with deliberate slowness. "You a paying customer here?" Marcus looked up from his eggs, chewing slowly, swallowing before he spoke. "I am." "You got a receipt?" Russo chimed in, pen hovering over paper. Beth stepped forward, coffee pot still in hand. "He's fine, officers. He comes in every week, pays cash, never causes trouble." Kane didn't even glance at her. "Did I ask you, ma'am?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Tony's hand tightened around his cleaning rag, but he stayed behind the counter. He'd learned when to pick battles and when to stay quiet. Marcus reached into his jacket, slow, careful movements that wouldn't be mistaken for anything threatening, and pulled out a worn leather wallet. He slid a Veterans Affairs card across the table. Kane picked it up, studied it like it might be counterfeit. "This all you got for ID?" he asked, voice dripping with skepticism. "It's all I need," Marcus replied, voice steady as bedrock. Russo let out a short laugh. "Yeah, we'll see about that." The cafe fell quiet except for the hum of the coffee machine and the distant sound of traffic. A businessman at the counter glanced over, then quickly looked away. A college student in the corner booth pulled out her phone, not to call for help, but to record. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and everyone could feel something was about to go very wrong. Russo moved closer, arms folded across his chest like he was sizing Marcus up for a mugshot. "How long you been sitting here?" he demanded. Marcus glanced at the clock above the register. "About 40 minutes. "And how long you planning on staying?" Kane interjected, tilting his head with mock curiosity. "Long enough to finish my breakfast, like everyone else." Beth slid the check onto the table, trying to keep her movements casual. "Here you go, Mr. Rivera." She emphasized his name, trying to humanize him in front of the officers. Kane raised an eyebrow. "He already ordered?" "He comes in every Wednesday," Beth said, voice growing firmer. "Pays cash, tips well, never bothers anyone. He's a regular, officers." Russo turned back to Marcus, voice dropping to a sneer. "You homeless?" Marcus nodded slowly. "I don't have a house, but I got a home in this town." Kane smirked. "Got smart answers, huh?" Marcus said nothing. He cut another piece of egg, chewed slowly, wiped his mouth with the paper napkin. The simple act of eating had become an act of resistance. "See, this is the problem," Kane said, addressing the room like he was giving a lecture. "People think they can just camp out wherever they want, take advantage of kind folks like these business owners. That fair to everyone else trying to run a legitimate establishment?" Nobody answered. The businessman hurried to finish his coffee. The college student kept recording, but kept her phone low. Nobody wanted to make it worse. Marcus set down his fork and looked Kane straight in the eye. "I served 3 tours in Afghanistan, came back, worked construction until my back gave out. I get by. I don't steal. I don't beg. I pay for my food. So why exactly are you talking to me like I broke into someone's house?" Kane's expression hardened. "Just relax, buddy. We're doing our job, making sure everything's on the up and up." Beth stepped forward with Showard again, eyes blazing. "Then check the register. He paid. I rang him up myself. What else do you need to know?" But Kane ignored her, turning back to Marcus. "Stand up." "Excuse me?" Marcus's voice remained calm, but something shifted in his posture. "I said stand up. I want to see what you got in that bag." Tony finally emerged from behind the counter, drying his hands on his apron. "Officers, with all due respect, can we take this outside? You're disrupting my other customers." Russo whirled on him. "Sir, we're conducting official business. Unless you want to be cited for obstruction, I suggest you step back." Marcus slowly rose to his feet. He was taller than he'd appeared sitting down, broader too. Years of military training still showed in the way he carried himself, despite the worn clothes and the weight of too many hard nights. "Empty your pockets," Kane ordered. "I haven't committed a crime," Marcus said quietly. "Empty them now, or I'll do it for you." Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out the flip phone. Old, scratched, the kind nobody used anymore except someone who couldn't afford better. Kane's eyes locked onto it immediately. "What's that for?" he demanded, already sounding suspicious. Marcus flipped it open with practiced ease, scrolled to a number, pressed call. The room went dead silent as he put the phone to his ear. After a moment, he spoke, voice calm as still water. "It's happening again." And just like that, the entire atmosphere in Murphy's Café shifted. Because nobody knew what that call meant, but the silence that followed was loud enough to shatter windows. Kane's face flushed red. "Who the hell did you just call?" Marcus closed the flip phone with a soft click and set it on the table next to his half-finished eggs. He didn't answer the question. Instead, he looked Kane straight in the eye and said, "You told me you were just doing your job. Now I'm doing mine." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Kane stepped forward, hand moving to his cuffs. "Sir, I'm going to need you to come outside with me right now." Tony had seen enough. "No, he's not going anywhere. Not unless you're arresting him for something specific." Russo pulled out his radio, but before he could speak, the door to the cafe swung open. Not the gentle chime of a regular customer, but the purposeful entrance of someone who meant business. A woman in her 40s walked in, navy, blue suit, FBI credentials already visible in her left hand. She moved with the kind of authority that didn't need to announce itself. "Officers," she said, voice crisp and professional, I'm going to need your badge numbers." Kane froze, hand still halfway to his cuffs. "Ma'am, we're responding to a complaint." "There was no complaint," the woman interrupted. "Special Agent Diana Torres, Federal Bureau of Investigation. We monitor certain communications channels. You've both been recorded violating departmental protocol since the moment you entered this establishment." Russo's mouth fell open. "With all due respect, Agent Torres, you don't have jurisdiction over civil rights violations, over harassment of a federal asset under protection?" Torres's voice could have cut glass. "Actually, I do." Marcus remained seated, calm as a still water, like none of this surprised him. Beth and Tony exchanged glances, finally understanding they'd been witnessing something much bigger than two cops hassling a homeless veteran. Kane looked around the room, realizing everyone was watching. Everyone had heard. Everyone had seen. And now a federal agent was standing in the middle of Murphy's Café, turning what should have been a routine roust into something that could end careers. Torres didn't smile, didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "I suggest you both step outside, now." Kane and Russo hesitated like schoolkids caught cheating on a test, but eventually walked toward the door, shoulders tense, heads down. Torres watched them go, then turned to the remaining customers. "I apologize for the disruption," she said, voice professional but not unkind. "We'll need a few minutes." The businessman left money on the counter and hurried out. The college student pocketed her phone but stayed in her corner booth, too curious to leave. Tony poured himself a cup of coffee with shaken hands. Torres pulled out the chair across from Marcus and sat down. Her tone shifted, less federal agent, more old friend. "You okay, Marcus?" He shrugged. "I've had worse mornings." "This is the 4th time this year," she said quietly. "Yeah? You want me to push this up the chain?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He folded his napkin neatly and placed it beside his plate. "Do what you have to do. I'm tired of explaining myself to people who've already made up their minds." Torres nodded. "You shouldn't have to. Not after everything you've sacrificed." Beth couldn't hold back any more. "I'm sorry, but who are you people? Marcus comes in here every week, quiet as a mouse, pays for his breakfast, never bothers a soul. Now suddenly he's making phone calls that bring federal agents running?" Torres looked at Marcus, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, then showed Beth the screen. It was a military photograph. Marcus in full-dress uniform, rows of ribbons on his chest, standing beside 2 other Marines in what looked like an official ceremony. "Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Rivera," Torres said quietly. "Force Recon. 3 tours Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq. He was part of a classified unit that rescued American hostages and intelligence assets behind enemy lines." Tony's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. "Jesus Christ." "He can't talk about most of what he did," Torres continued. "Still classified, but I can tell you he saved a lot of lives, American lives, civilian lives, and when he came home, the system failed him." Marcus stared out the window where Kane and Russo were standing by their patrol car, both on their phones, both looking increasingly desperate. "They see the uniform in old photographs," he said quietly, "but they don't see it when I'm sitting in a diner trying to eat." Torres pulled out a tablet, swiped through several files. "Housing voucher denied 3 times due to administrative errors. VA disability claim delayed 18 months. Job applications ignored despite exemplary military record." She looked up at him. "The system you served is supposed to serve you back." "But it doesn't," Marcus said. "So I get by. I don't complain. I don't make trouble. I just try to eat my breakfast in peace." Beth was staring at the photograph on Torres's phone. "All those ribbons, what do they mean?" "Bronze Star with V device for valor," Torres said. "Purple Heart, Navy Commendation Medal, Combat Action Ribbon. He's a genuine American hero, and until today, he was being treated like a criminal for having the audacity to exist in public." Through the window, they could see Kane pacing by the patrol car, his supervisor's voice loud enough to carry through the glass even if the words weren't clear. Russo sat in the driver's seat, head in his hands. "What's going to happen to them?" Tony asked. Torres closed her tablet. "Full investigation. Internal Affairs will review their conduct. The FBI will examine whether this constitutes a pattern of civil rights violations. Their body cam footage will be analyzed frame by frame." She paused. "Careers have ended for less." Marcus finished his coffee, cold as it was. "I don't want apologies. I want them to learn something that sticks." "They will," Torres said, "one way or another." Outside, a news van pulled into the parking lot. Then another. Word was getting out, and the story was bigger than two officers harassing a veteran. It was about a system that failed its heroes and the people who thought that they could get away with it. The college student in the corner booth looked up from her phone, eyes wide. Excuse me? Mr. Rivera? You're trending on Twitter." Marcus frowned. "I don't know what that means." "It means the whole country is talking about you," she said, turning her screen toward him. "Someone leaked the body cam footage. It's everywhere. #Justice for Marcus is the #2 trend in the United States." Torres sighed. "That was fast." "Fast?" The student laughed. "This hit TikTok an hour ago. It's got 2 million views already. People are furious about how they treated you." Beth leaned over to look at the phone. The footage was grainy but clear. Kane demanding ID, Russo's sneering questions, Marcus maintaining his dignity throughout. But what really captured people's attention was the moment Torres walked in and everything changed. "People wanted to know who you are," the student continued. "They're calling you a silent warrior. There's already a GoFundMe to get you housing." Marcus shook his head. "I don't want charity." "It's not charity," Torres said gently. "It's people recognizing what you've given and trying to give something back." Within the next hour, the cafe filled with reporters. Local news, then regional, then national. Marcus refused interviews, but the story grew anyway. Investigative journalists started digging into his military record, the parts that weren't classified. They found commendations, testimonials from fellow Marines, evidence of a hero who'd come home to indifference and neglect. By evening, Marcus's name wasn't just trending on social media. It was running across the bottom of CNN and Fox News. The story had everything: a decorated veteran, systemic failure, abuse of authority, and justice finally served. The video clip of Torres shutting down the officers had been viewed 10 million times. "This is bigger than you now," Torres told him as they sat in the emptying cafe. "It's about every veteran who's been ignored, every homeless person who's been dehumanized, every abuse of power that went unchecked." Marcus looked tired, not physically tired, soul tired. "All I wanted was to eat my breakfast." "I know," Torres said, "but sometimes the universe has other plans." The cafe had finally emptied except for Marcus, Torres, and Tony, who was cleaning up while trying not to eavesdrop too obviously. Torres waited until the last reporter left, then pulled out a classified file folder. "Time for the real story," she said, setting it on the table between them. Inside were photographs Marcus hadn't seen in years. Him in full combat gear in places he wasn't supposed to talk about. Mission reports with most of the text blacked out. And a letter of commendation from someone whose signature was worth more than most people's entire careers. "Task Force Phantom," Torres said quietly. "Joint Special Operations Unit. Hostage rescue, intelligence extraction, high-value target elimination. 12 members total, all hand-picked. You were the team leader for 3 years." Tony dropped his cleaning rag. "Team leader?" 47 successful missions," Torres continued. 0 American casualties under his command. He brought everyone home, every time." Marcus stared at the photographs. Younger faces, different lifetime. "That was a long time ago." "Not that long," Torres said. "When you called today, it triggered protocols that are still active, because technically you're still on the books as a federal asset, inactive but not retired." "Asset?" Tony looked confused. "People like Marcus don't really retire," Torres explained. "They know too much, did too much. There's always a chance they might be needed again. So we keep track. We watch out for them. and when someone threatens them, she gestured toward the window where the patrol car had been, we respond. Marcus closed the file. I never wanted special treatment. It's not special treatment. It's what you earned. Torres leaned forward. You saved American lives in the places we can't even acknowledge exist. You came home with trauma we can't legally admit you experienced. The least we can do is make sure you can eat breakfast in peace. Through the window, they could see more news vans arriving. The story wasn't dying down, it was exploding. Social media had turned Marcus into a symbol, but the classified details Torres had just revealed would never see the light of day. The public would know he was a hero. They'd never know just how much of one. The next morning brought news that rippled through every police station in California. Officers Kane and Russo had been suspended pending a full investigation. The FBI had opened a civil rights case. Internal Affairs was reviewing every arrest they'd made in the past 5 years. But it went deeper than 2 officers. The incident had exposed a pattern. Body cam footage from dozens of interactions surfaced, showing the same prejudice, the same abuse of authority, the same assumption that homeless veterans were somehow less deserving of respect than anyone else. Marcus sat in his usual booth at Murphy's, but everything was different now. A steady stream of people came by. Some wanting selfies, others just wanting to shake his hand and say thank you. He accepted the attention with the same quiet dignity he'd shown everything else. A man in an expensive suit approached the table. Mr. Rivera, I'm David Chen from Riverside Veteran Services. We'd like to offer you permanent housing. No strings attached, just a way to say thank you. Marcus looked up from his coffee. I can pay rent. I just need someone willing to rent to me. Consider it handled, Chen said, sliding a business card across the table. There's also a job offer. Security consultant, your experience, your background, companies are lining up. For the first time in years, Marcus smiled. Not a big smile, but real. I'll think about it. Torres appeared at his shoulder, phone in hand. Kane and Russo just resigned, she said. Effective immediately. The department's calling it a mutual agreement, but we both know what it really means. What about the others? Marcus asked. 5 more officers under investigation. The department's reviewing every case involving homeless individuals from the past 2 years. She sat down across from him. You started something here. Beth refilled his coffee without being asked. You know what I think? She said. I think the universe was just waiting for the right person to make the right phone call at the right time. Marcus nodded slowly. Maybe so. 6 months later, Murphy's Café looked the same, but felt completely different. The corner booth still belonged to Marcus, but now he arrived in a Honda Civic instead of on foot. The apartment key in his pocket was small, but it represented something huge. Dignity restored, respect earned, yet justice served. The case had become a national touchstone. Police departments across the country had implemented new training protocols. The Veterans Administration had streamlined housing and disability processes. Marcus's story had forced a conversation nobody wanted to have, but everybody needed to hear. Torres had stopped by every few weeks, always in civilian clothes now, always sitting in the same booth. Any regrets about that phone call? She asked over coffee. Marcus shook his head. Only that it took so long to make it. The federal investigation had uncovered systematic failures at every level. Kane and Russo were facing federal charges. Their department had been restructured from top to bottom, and across the country, homeless veterans were finding that the world looked at them a little differently now. You know what I learned? Marcus said, watching the morning crowd come and go. Sometimes you don't fight back by fighting. Sometimes you fight back by refusing to be invisible. Beth appeared with his usual order, eggs over easy, wheat toast, coffee black, but now she always added something extra. Respect, recognition. The knowledge that the quiet man in the corner booth had changed the world, one phone call at a time. Outside, Riverside was waking up to another ordinary day. But for Marcus Rivera, and for thousands of veterans like him, ordinary had taken on a new meaning. It meant being seen, being heard, being treated like the heroes they'd always been. You did good, Torres said, standing to leave. Marcus raised his coffee cup in a small salute. We all did good. The bell above the door chimed as she left, and Marcus returned to his breakfast. Same booth, same meal, same quiet dignity. But now the world was watching and listening and learning, and that made all the difference. What would you do if you witnessed something like this? Would you stand up, speak out, or stay silent? The choice we make in moments like these defines who we are as a society.